Hello, welcome back to another episode of Bastions and Basilisks. This time, we're doing a quick-ish, hopefully, about our characters that we've played and their backstories. I will start just to make it easier. We're each going to do three, because three is a good number. Uh, one isn't enough. Two is, scratching the itch, but not quite, rubbing the scalp. It's not quite a scalp massage.
You
So,
really were trying to figure something out to say.
yeah, on the fly. So the first one I'm going to do is I've probably mentioned at least two of these characters before. Uh, I don't know if I've mentioned Knife. I've told you about Knife, but I don't know if I've mentioned Knife. But so technically, his name is Thazar de Daseret. He is a red wizard of Thay. He's obviously a human, born and raised in Thay. Um, and his whole backstory, like he has a very it's I feel like it's kind of a good middle ground. It's not super vague. It's vague enough for a backstory because like that's something you want to do as as a player for a GM is that's why I love backstories because it gives the GM something to use. Because if you have some random people in your backstory, that's somebody that can be pulled in. Either I hate it when people use family members as like hostages, but it's there, or betrayals, or if you have somebody that betrayed you in the past and got away, then now you have a random. God damn it, pop filter, talking shit again. That's like 3 for 3. So that's I love having enough information in a backstory. I used to do like super drawn out ones, mainly because I had one for a fourth edition campaign where the GM said that anything that was in your backstory I will allow. So I had at that point I had an Eladrin ranger who I kind of justified why he had like his two magical swords, his magical boots, like some of that stuff. But I also gave him he had dark vision because he was born just as the Eladrin city was going back into the Feywild. So like the Feywild, like the magic of the Feywild, kind of imbued him. So he kind of gained that he was immune to fear because he lived in he fought for like 20-30 years um in like pit fights in the Underdark because he was kidnapped. He was like a POW by dark elves, um which he hated because he's like, oh, I hit you with this thing. I was like, I'm immune to fear. I like you approved it. So like that was like it was just like that was like 4 pages of me writing. It was ridiculous. But so Thazar Day, like essentially he um I didn't know this. I just was like I lived with my mom and my dad, and essentially he wanted to be a wizard. He was intelligent, so he that's a big thing about Fae, that they're a magocracy. So he was able to get into the Wizard Academy at like 5 or 6 years old, and then was in there for a decade. At some point, while he was doing research in the library, because he's the biggest book nerd, um, he he learned about the god Yurgle because in the Forgotten Realms, like they are deeply religious because it actually matters there. Um, because like when you die, your soul actually goes to the realm that your god is from or it resides over. So like it actually matters to worship gods in the Forgotten Realms, unlike most of the other locations. Um, so so he kind of read about Yurgle, and Yurgle's whole thing is he is the god of scribe, like he's the scribe of the dead. So he keeps track of those who have died to make sure that their souls, like he's a soul accountant essentially. And so Thazar was like, yes, yes. So he became like that day. He became a devout follower of Yurgle. Even has his own book of the dead where he writes the names of people into it. His name is the first name on the list, so that when he dies, if it's just random, he's already like he's taken into account that he will die someday, which is why he's not scared of dying because he knows where he's gonna go. Um, and then he went to wizard school, like, and I think the whole thing is he went to wizard school. He was super nerdy. He graduated, and that's kind of a basic rundown of it. And then stuff kind of was added later because it was generic enough in certain aspects that we could kind of fill in gaps with just funny stuff, like when I rolled a nat 20 on a knowledge check against a minotaur. So he was like, oh yeah, while in wizard school, I wrote my thesis was on minotaurs. I wrote a report about minotaurs, so that's why I know everything about minotaurs. So it's pulling something, like it's justifying why he rolled the nat 20 and why he knows everything about him. And then at some point he rolled another nat 20 when they went to Avernus, and he knew everything about Avernus or stone giants or one of the dwarf gods. Like there's a list of things, like vampires. Like but so it's just he just has this list. I actually have kept a list of all of the things that he rolled nat 20s on, because he was like, oh yeah, I wrote a report about this in wizard school, which is funny, but also kind of gives more depth to the character, which is 10 times funnier because he went to necromancy school. I don't know why I said it like that. Um, he went to necromancy school, and I rolled a nat 1 to identify a will-o-wisp.
He didn't do really well in the very beginning.
So I was like, the fuck's a will-o-wisp? And they're like, oh, it's a type of undead. He's like, they're undead? So he had no idea that will-o-wisps were undead, which is still like one of my favorite roles to this day. But then actually I was watching the Mr. Rex video, and he explained that
Weren't they Fey at one point?
they were Fey creatures until 5th edition. It's only in 5th edition that they've become undead. So that is my justification. Essentially, the books that he read essentially that are from before the spell plague are outdated, and that is the problem. And so, and his whole reasoning for becoming an adventurer is not because of some grand tragedy with his family, like a lot of people, like, oh, my whole family was wiped out or something, and I have to go do things. He wants to explore, and because he knows that the spell plague happened and a lot of stuff has changed. The world has shifted dramatically since the spell plague, and somebody has to go out and learn all of the stuff to put it in the textbooks so that everybody knows all of these things. So that's what he wanted to do, and that's what he does. He keeps track of monsters. Like we ran into some kind of monster, and he had never seen it before, so he was dissecting it on a ship. Eventually I changed him through. He's had a couple iterations. Now he's an Order of the Scribes wizard, which is the perfect for the character. But like his dad is scribe in Fae. His mom is a warlock who she's like 80 years old apparently, but doesn't look it, and she like is a slave auctioneer because Fae has slaves. Like it's just one of those things. Like those two, my parents, like I was like, I have parents, they're still alive. We went back to the whatever the city is, and like every time we would return there, I would have a place to stay, and my friends, my party would have somewhere to stay. Like, so that's kind of a lot of just vague kind of stuff, but I have a reason for exploring that isn't like, oh, I have to avenge my dead family. Like, no, my family's alive. And they're supporting me being a wizard and going and doing stuff. And now I have an adoptive minotaur son, and so anyway, sorry, that got out of hand.
You're all good. It's actually like I enjoy the level of depth that you put into your character, because like it kind of puts to shame a lot of mine, because mine are like built around a singular idea that I slowly built upon from there. So it's very interesting seeing how much deeper in thought that you go into your characters comparatively to me.
Well, a lot of that, like, it's essentially the whole backstory for Thazar was just like he really liked. He's a super fucking nerd.
He loved books.
He found a Yurgle, started worshiping Yurgle, loves nerd shit, spends all his time in libraries and he loves being a wizard.
What's that TikTok audio? It's like, I'm the glove glod gambula or whatever the fuck, and he's like, I love books.
I have no idea.
Dude, I gotta find it. Next time
Yeah.
I find it.
Yeah.
Harley said that she's gonna find it. Send it to me so I can send it to him. Oh, send it to him direct.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
I just imagine your character.
Yeah. Oh, he's the nerdiest. He's also now a planeswalker.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. because I made a joke in my friend Curtis's game that I made comments and nobody said anything. That essentially, I left hints and nobody ever tried to pick up on it. Essentially, Thazar was just like, because the game was in Ravnica, he's back in the Forgotten Realms, but he was in Ravnica because that's where Marty is, his son, his adoptive Minotaur son. So but he was in
Marty the
Ravnica.
Minotaur.
Yeah, Marty the Minotaur. I'm gonna write a series of books about it. I just have to find a Swana artist, um, about Marty the Minotaur and the Man in the Red Robes. Um, and so essentially he got like I was like, yeah, I just kind of appeared here one day, and like Marty was like, yeah, you should ask my dad about how he got here, it's really funny. And like nobody asked me, and I'm like, God, like I'm beating you over the head trying to get you guys to ask, and nobody did. And essentially I was like, that's how he got there. Essentially he accidentally planeswalked because he was just so mad. He's trying to figure out, because he wasn't high enough level to get plane shift, and he was trying to figure out how to get to Ravnica because it's not like it's on a map, because it's not part of the celestial, map or whatever. So he's trying to figure out how to get there, and he just was like, God damn it! And then it just like that's how the spark ignited, and he accidentally planeswalked.
Give me a bottle opener.
What?
A bottle opener. So,
Anyway, her
dude,
character now. Before.
yeah, I love her character. So this is going to be technically a 2-for-1, as they both share very similar backstories, like pretty much the same. They're brother and sister. Uh, by the way, I did not take this anywhere from fucking Critical Role. I did not mean it by any way. Anything that happened during this entire conversation of explaining my character is completely just coincidental. But I have two goblins that are named Sneer and Smear. They were, dude, I've had these guys for like 5 years. I've been wanting to play these guys. Uh, Pretty much their entire concept is that they want to become gods, the very stereotypical like adventuring type, and that want to be better than what they are. They were raised into this kind of like tribal village. I wouldn't say necessarily tribal, but like village that was very much like the normal goblin type of thing, but they weren't inherently evil. Like they would accept random people in, and like they were trying to get away from that goblins are bad type of vibe
Mhm.
that are typically within fifth edition. So from that is where I built into the fact that they are twins. One is like the quiet, doesn't talk at all rogue, which is Sneer, and then Smear is the bard female, and she is college of glamour specifically. So she's like, as she gets more powerful, she gets more attractive, and like her entire thing is that she's an insult comic. So it's like you're just having this really hot goblin that's like just insulting you, and like you're kind of into it type of thing. And then her boyfriend, her brother is just like, yeah, that was completely accidental.
I'm not gonna judge. Whatever.
But her brother is like completely like separation anxiety. If he's anywhere away from her, that's like out of sight, he starts having panic attacks type of thing. So he has to always be near her. And they grew up, and they pretty much Sneer was like a hunter within the village, helping grab food and stuff, and Smear more or less did like a couple of like magic things when she started developing magic, like helping out with like mage hand, and then eventually she started finding out that she can crack jokes really well. And so in the local tavern that they had, she would end up like putting on performances and stuff, and like she was really good at the lute and singing, but she really loved insulting people, and eventually Vicious Mercury was involved. So building up in just a couple years, they ended up turning to the Age of Eight, which for my game, not my game specifically, but the game I'm playing in, that was when the pilgrimage for their adulthood would pretty much start. So in this, they'd have to go out for a couple years and pretty much try to do something to help benefit goblin kind. And that was like doing several acts of kindness to the point to where like people think that goblins aren't inherently all bad, or finding some sort of magic item that could assist the village or something. And it was left ambiguous to make sure that not every goblin that left or person that was raised into this village didn't have the ability to return and because of shame, pretty much. So in the campaign that I'm playing, uh, where Chronepsis, I believe, is the dragon god of like time or whatever the fuck. I don't remember how to say their name, but like it's a pivotal that their entire shtick is that they're gods. Like they're trying to become them. And so it's weird because like this is kind of like time travel in the game, but they live amongst multiple iterations of themselves. So way like several years earlier, they'll be playing younger versions of themselves with the mentality that they're in now with their age, or if they're going into the future, they're in their adult forms and they're like still the same mental age as when you first started playing them. And the entire point of the entire game is that for them, they're pretty much trying to stop Tiamat from taking over the world because in the point that we started, they already did, or Tiamat already did. So they're gathering magic weapons, pretty much vestiges, as my buddy who's running it pretty much stated, and they have to go to focal points within the chronological order of time to stop Tiamat from taking over. And their entire bit is they're doing this and their intention is to come back and just live out their life normally. This entire thing that they're kind of fucked into with this time traveling thing is they help with this and this saves the world, so therefore they're going to come back and they're going to be able to become adults in the eyes of the village. And that's pretty much their entire shtick at the moment. Like I never got to finish it as we're still playing game, but to what I was talking with my DM, it's like, yeah, hopefully by the end, if your characters don't die, you're going to become gods. And at that point, they're going to be Smear is going to be the god of entertainment and comedy, while Sneer is the going to be like the god of assassins and protection, as he's a rogue and he's a rogue assassin. So it's kind of his shtick, but he's also like more of the surprisingly good aligned one because Smear's more doesn't care who the hell you are, while his Sneer tries to keep everyone in check type of thing.
That sounds exactly like the plot of so many webtoons I read.
Really?
Except for the becoming gods thing. But yeah, so many of them, which is this is no way insulting to your friend's game. I'm like, fuck, that's a good idea. Where like multiple that I'm reading or have read are like the character, it's like 10 years from now or whatever, and the world is ending, and they're like the last person. And essentially, the like in one of the ones that I'm reading, like the character, the demon god wipes everybody out except for him, and he um does a thing like essentially the guy's like the demon god's like, take my hand, I'll give you like unlimited power and you could just be under me. And then the guy's like, yeah, right. And like goes to shake his hand, and but he had some magic cast on him, so like his hand explodes and like obliterates like all it like he explodes and obliterates the demon god's hand. And essentially like, you fucking thought, bitch. And like
Yeah, I'd rather die
and
type of
died
thing.
like, and so because of that the demon god gets pissy and like tells the angels to reverse time so that he could fight that guy and get like, and so the main character goes back 10 years in
Some
time
petty.
and he knows what's going to happen in the future. And so like it's um like
That
that
is
would
some
be
cool
that would be a
info.
really fun thing to do, is like roll up roll up a level, maybe 15 character, and have like a huge fight with like a super powerful, like unbeatable. You'd have to make them unbeatable, but like
Yeah.
come up with like a whole backstory about what your character's done over the years. And like, but you'd have to also have a timeline. Like the GM would have to have a timeline of what's happened, and then you fight the thing, and essentially your whole party gets wiped out. And then the gods are
Yeah.
like, "We'll give you another chance," and then you go back to being level one, but like you only knew about this war, like 5 years ago, whereas like it really started 10 years ago. And so you're building up, and like it'd be a really lot of fun. Anyway,
Yeah,
um,
like what's funny is that in this game, like there's like each character was born along the timeline. Like some were born before Tiamat took over. My characters were like towards the end where like it's already like taken over. Tiamat's got everything by the balls, basically. So when they died, it was like a year later is when Chronepsis was like, hey, everyone's coming back, and that's how the party is together. But it's really funny because to what I was told by my DM, because I literally helped build 75% of the campaign that we have so far,
mhm.
is that he was like, yeah, pretty much I'm gonna let you know is that you're already technically gods, because that's why they're no longer connected to Chronepsis. It's just they can't do anything until Tamat's like taken out because they're stuck in a time loop because they're
Uh-huh.
under Chronepsis. So I was like, hey, I don't care. Like that my
Mhm.
my
I got
my
you.
characters are still not knowing that they're gods yet. So I
That's
find it
cool.
interesting.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that idea. See, that's a great thing. That's a cool concept. Something happens, and then you get dragged back in time to prevent it. And
What's funny
um,
is that like there's a point where I created this it's a perfect place to put a mind flayer dragon. And I made a joke about it. And he was like, I don't know what a mind flayer dragon is. I was like, it is one of the worst fucking things you can ever put in a campaign. And he was like, I'm gonna look it up. He looks it up. He's like, where do you want to put this? And I was like, right here specifically. And if we don't take care of it within this 1 month span in time, it started. If we don't take care of the mind flayers that kind of shift over by accident, it's gonna happen. And he's like, I like this idea. And like, dude, when I said I helped create over 75% of this, I'm not joking. Like a lot of the lore in this world is just something I helped concoct. And it was just us talking while I'm at work, just trying to figure out what to do with it. It's really fun.
all right, so I was gonna do chips, but I like the idea of talking about twins. Um, because I love talking about chips. Uh,
Chips is amazing. It's like almost every video we talk about chips.
right?
I love
I
chips.
probably have mentioned Chips' backstory multiple times anyway. Because I was just telling my roommate's son about Chips and how he beat the shit out of an NPC so bad that she became a planeswalker.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
I need to
essentially,
get as far away
he
from you as possible.
exactly. It's very much like there's in the World War Hulk arc. Um, Hulk shows up because the Illuminati sent him to space, and then something happened, and then he went to Sakaar, and then something blew, like his ship blew up, and he thinks that it's the Illuminati that did it. So he gets pissed, and then he comes to Earth, and he's the strongest that he's ever been at that point. I think he's more stronger now, but so he's like he beats the shit out of Black Bolt. Like he has so many good lines. Like his big line is like Black Bolt whispers like something at him, and like explosions happen on the moon or whatever, and then Hulk is like, I didn't come here to hear you whisper, I came here to make you scream.
Dude, that's fucking
And if
good.
you know anything about Black Bolt, you know how terrible of an idea that is. And then the next thing is like him sending a picture to Earth of him holding the beat to shit body of Black Bolt, um, which shows you how much of a threat he is at that point.
The fact that he beat Black Bolt, whose entire thing is everything he says is just bad
Like
ideas.
his whisper can like destroy city blocks.
Yeah.
It's like
And the fact that he
the
wants him to scream, which is
the
world ending.
the concussive force. Yeah. So anyway, so eventually World War Hulk shows up and is just giving the X-Men the business. He is just IRS taxing the shit out of them. Um, I don't know. I'm very white. None of my jokes are funny. Um,
I found it
and
funny.
and if you know anything about Darwin, Darwin's whole power is he adapts to literally anything. They did him a disservice in the fucking movie, and I'm
Yeah, they
saying it
just like
right to the
fucking
camera. It's like
murked him.
yeah, they murked him. But in the comics, like he gets into a fight with Hela, and Hela has an ability where if she touches somebody who isn't a god, they die. His body adapted by making him a god.
Hell yeah. Darwin the God.
So that's how over like his power is Omega level, like beyond Omega level. Um, he got punched by like he was trying like his power adapted to absorbing gamma radiation, and so he's trying to absorb the gamma radiation coming off of the Hulk, and he's having trouble with it because it's just so much. And then the Hulk punches him.
He can't control both at the same
And,
time.
well, no, that's not it. On screen there is a pop, and he is no longer there. And somebody comments that essentially Darwin's power is to adapt to literally anything to survive, and his body decided that the best place to be when fighting the Hulk is nowhere near the fucking Hulk.
That when the only opportunity is to literally
Like,
pull
yeah,
yourself
the
out of
only
the way.
chance you have of surviving is to not be in that fight anymore. So that's the joke that I have is that's essentially what happened to Terror of the Deep is that she got her ass kicked by Chip's Tooth on Chainmail so much that she just accidentally ignited her spark, became a planeswalker, and accidentally planeswalked.
Dude, that's
um,
freaking great.
anyway, um, so Perrin, and this is if you watch our game, I might have mentioned Perrin before in game, but Perrin is a character, is a twin. He's a half elf twin with my friend Salem, who's playing the girl playing Paradel. Perrin is a devout cleric of Mask. Now, currently, he's a cleric of like he's actually Mask domain from Faiths of the Forgotten Realms, which so he actually uses masks as part of his divinity, like his like channel divinity powers.
Dude, that's fucking dope.
Normally, he uses like a demon mask, which while he's wearing gives him resistance to fire, or there's like the jester mask while he's wearing it gives him like a bunch of skill proficiencies. Um, and the whole story with those characters was essentially Perrin and Paradel. We kind of incorporated the two backstory once again. Like it's two characters, but we had the exact same backstory because we're twins and we grew up together. Um, but instead of being played by one person, it's two people. So what happened is our dad was human and our mom was an elf, and so we lived in Silvery Moon, or we were born in Silvery Moon, but our mother died in childbirth. So our dad, especially because the Forgotten Realms are shit, they essentially like, well, we can't just have this human here living here. There's no elf anymore, so get the fuck out. So he decided to take his family away, and so he moved to the Moonshae Isles. And then so we grew up on the Moonshae Isles. You know, we're rambunctious half elves, so getting into trouble. I eventually, learned about Mask and became a cleric, like not quite a cleric, but devout follower of Mask, and like started wearing masks all the time. And then and eventually like I don't even know, I don't remember what the whole thing is, but somehow I think we got into trouble with some group and we were running away and we hid on a ship, very much like Road to El Dorado on accident. We were on a ship and then suddenly we woke up and the ship was out to sea and we're like, oops. And we were like 13, 14 at the time.
Castaways.
So we became like, sailor. We have the pirate background, but we were, doing sailor type stuff. And eventually, we're just out there living our best lives because Paradel is she's an assassin and I'm a cleric of Mask. Now I'm a cleric bard. I'm a eloquence bard because that's broken as fuck. Um, I have persuasion. I rolled below a 10. It's a 10 plus my 9, so I have a 19 persuasion check. You believe me. You want to do what I say. Um, Eventually we found out that our father died, so we came back to the Moonshae Isles to the island that our dad, that we grew up on. Um, because the big bad guy of the whole campaign, like his one of his like lieutenants or whatever was the cause. Like they killed our father essentially. So we came back to bury our father, and then but like our ship was attacked, and then we rode to a nearby island, and um, but like it's one of the, so we have a very generic thing, and but then it's role playing the characters because Salem missed the first session, and so like we got into some fights and we're like rowing, and my brother was playing a human fighter, and he just like nat won his athletics check to try to swim. So my tiny framed half elf cleric is like swimming, carrying this 6.5 foot tall beast of a human, like paddling away while he's like waterlogged because he apparently like knocked himself out. Um, and like then we get on the like we're rescued by one of the other characters who's playing a Kenku. Uh, and it's like, hey, where's your sister? But like, she'll show back up. She just kind of disappears sometimes, and she'll
Does
show
that.
back up, which is because she's a rogue, so she just disappears, and then eventually she shows back up. That's just what she does. I've stopped worrying because she always comes back. So it's not like, aren't you worried that your sister's been gone for a week? I'm like, no, like I'll worry if she's gone for another week. Um, and I worry for whoever has stopped her because she's a fucking nightmare. So like, and that's it's a lot of fun, and that's a character backstory with another player, which I think is also a great thing to do. If you can make a backstory with another character, then it's even better when it clicks because you can make a backstory with somebody, and it's like you just it's there and it's kind of clunky and it doesn't really work. But I think I've just been lucky that I've had a lot of luck where because I had another character. I know I'm just kind of going into another backstory, but I had a character in third edition D&D named Redemption, and he was a monk, and I won't go too much into the backstory, but essentially his stuff happened. He was rescued by an orc artificer, um, and then because this man saved my life, like kind of I owe him, and so we travel around, and I have the pact of, or I the not pact, um, crap. You can take on like things where like you don't the vow like I have the vow of poverty. There we go, vows. I had a vow of poverty, so my character could not keep any material wealth. Like I could like maybe a weapon, but I could not keep any gold except for like maybe like 10 silver or something. Like there was a specific amount so that I could kind of live, but like I had to be bare minimum. And like this orc,
Something to get by type of thing.
right? Yeah, like this, but only marginally. Like it's not like I could be comfortable. So, but like this orc was like so perplexed by the fact that this person would just give their wealth away. So he just kind of kept traveling with me, and then that's how our characters knew each other, and the game started. And there's a really interesting kind of opening to the campaign in the back of the Eberron book in third edition, because it was in on Eberron. And essentially, like we had this whole thing, and like we're out walking, just me and his, like my character, and his character, and like some other player, the other player characters are like in the vicinity too, and like it's torrential downpouring. And I was like, oh, do you have? I was like, I'll just have a tarp, and I'll put tarps because I'm a warforged, so I was like, my arms aren't going to get tired, so I was like, we'll just get a tarp because I'm also a foot taller than his character. So I was like, we'll just get a tarp and put a tarp over my arms. He's like, I have a 10-foot pole. I was like, dope. So he just puts up his 10-foot pole. I put out my arms. He's walking with a tent, essentially, keeping him dry. Like I'm a mobile, like I understand umbrellas are mobile, but like I'm a mobile, like tent, essentially, keeping him dry. And that's just something we came up with on the spot. I was like, I do this. He's like, oh, I have this. Like, and we just vibed automatically. We were on the same level of just cool, and that's just we went. And like so, it's great creating a character with somebody else, um, because then you can kind of mesh the two backgrounds together, and then you have something in game to kind of drag you in, which is nice.
So I kind of like how you do that with that one, talking about building your character in with someone else's, because my next one, I think I've had the conversation about Kylan Vaugh with you. I know I've on my channel I've talked about Kylan Vaugh. He
It
was
sounds familiar, but
he's my blood hunter fighter, Jazalt obviously, but he was my favorite one. He's Ghost Slayer. He was one that I named after one of my buddies back when I was in the Marine Delayed Entry program.
Ghost Slayers,
Because
whatever.
uh his name was Kyler. So I put Kylen because I thought that was really cool. So the entire backstory on Kylen Va was he was a regular drow whose dad kind of like a what the fuck is that drow's name from
Dritz.
the book? Yeah, kind of like Dritz. But his dad ended up sneaking him out. Dad dies, but he grows up in a village, and it kind of like time skips because his youth wasn't really important. So he eventually finds a half orc that he falls in love with, and they have a child. And eventually, after doing farm work, he ends up finding out about the Order of Blood Hunters, and he ends up joining the Ghost Slayers. Like he does a couple missions, like he's there for a couple years, and he's not like a super big member, and he ends up rising through the ranks finally. And we started, I think, at level 10 for this guy. So he ends up being a decently known member, and they go to attack a cult. And this cult is to one of the demons. I forgot which demon it was, but the cult had already summoned demons within the layer that they weren't aware of. All of their information was pretty much old as shit, and they didn't know what they were walking into. And these are like some pretty high level guys, like 10, 11, 12, 13, and they walk in and they get swarmed. They're getting fucking massacred. And he was the lowest ranking person there. And in the Order of Ghost Slayers, their thing is you don't retreat unless told to, and the ones that retreat are the lowest, like the younger ones in terms of rank. And that's just how we had it. So him being the youngest, and he's bloodied his, like, I think everyone was dead besides his leader of the group. And as he's about to get beheaded, he's like, "You need to fucking leave, Kylan. Leave and tell everyone what happened." As he dies, he starts bolting. He runs, he drops all of his equipment, like he bolts. Eventually he gets back home, and his house was like kind of the halfway point between his local like hideout of blood hunters. So he ends up resting there for the night, and he goes back to his headquarters, tells him what happens, and then on the way back, he starts having like this really bad feeling. He finds out that his wife and son were killed. So now he has a vendetta. Note, I forgot to mention that he is a
Is he also a Spartan?
no. He's a devout follower of the Raven Queen also during this time. So like he understands that he's not necessarily sad about death, but this is what really got him. So he turns vengeful, and his entire thing is like he's going to hunt down the demon involved with this, like the leader that started that cult fight. And he also wants to, oh, it was Orcus. And he wants to destroy Orcus. So he doesn't realize it's like Orcus at the time, but he's pretty much trying to find a Death Knight. And from that Death Knight, he's finding and pinpointing each one of the demons specifically that were in that cultist hideout. So his entire thing is going through and finding these demons. One of the demons ends up being like a contract with another character who is a gunslinger, and he's a bounty hunter. So they finding out this guy is possessed, which was like some royalty, and the other character, which I think his name was Roland, he ended up getting in trouble, and he got locked in prison for the assassination of this individual. Which what was supposed to be Kylan getting the last kill ends up being Roland, and Kylan was like, "Deuces, I'm out. You decided to kill him. That was not what we agreed upon. You can get fucked." Well, Kylan gets involved and realizes that he's also witch hunted now. And so they leave Hyson, which was like a little world that is supposed to be a shithole in the first place. So he ends up breaking Roland out of jail because he needed to get him out because he felt kind of responsible. And they go on a boat as they're being chased, and the boat sets sails, and they're like, you know what? Fuck them. They're leaving. They're not going to be here. They're going to die on the way to Arsene, which is the place that we were having our campaign. So in Arsene, it was convenient that that's where the Death Knight was that I needed to communicate for getting further in finding out who the next demon was. So doing this, there was a whole bunch of things that went down with Roland trying to figure out a way to maintain a reason to stay around Kylan, as Kylan one knows that there's not really a strong blood hunter organization within Arsene. So he's like one of like 30, I believe, on the entire continent. He has no backup pretty much. He's trying to survive at a place that's already not liking him as he is a drow, and there's not really many drow there. He's trying to find work, and he's trying to figure out where to go. And he has no lead. So he's constantly praying to the Raven Queen, trying to seek guidance, trying to seek absolution for the crimes he's done. Because during this entire point, he's also interrogated people who he isn't for sure like known to be attached to cultist organizations or anything, but he didn't care. It's like if he assumed that you could have had any knowledge, he's going to go after you. So he's killed some bad people. So he's constantly trying to get absolution for killing good people, and he prays every night. And this becomes integral because while he's praying, Lolth will sometimes creep in, and spiders are constantly around him. And every time he sees a spider, he starts getting like that, like his blood runs cold type of
Mm-hmm.
sensation, and he has to kill it. And at some point, he ends up kind of making what is it, a phase spider, one of the two, the ones that are in the ether,
Yeah.
whatever the fuck it is, the astral realm, whatever the fuck. Uh, he ends up kind of forcing one into servitude by threatening it. So he makes jokes with Roland because at one point he ended up getting in trouble for some murders he didn't commit on some guards, and Roland bails him out of jail. And he finds out while in jail that there was some cultist activity at a location, and they believe it happens to be associated with either Zugdmoy, Orcus, or fucking hyena guy. Forgot his name. Yanogu. And he doesn't like demons, he doesn't like devils, but he's all about destroying them regardless. So he's like, fuck it, if I can have purpose here right now, I'll
Right.
be happy. Excuse me. So he's like overhearing this. He's quiet. He's been praying this entire time he's in jail. I think he's in jail like a week. He hasn't eaten. He hasn't really drank anything. He's just purposely praying, and there's spiders coming in and out, and he's killing them other than just praying. At some point, he just stands up and he's like, I'm gonna go do my job. And the guys are like, what the fuck do you mean you're just gonna do your job? So he uses his ethereal step ability and just walks out of the wall, and he just starts hauling ass. Like, he could have done this the entire time. He was just like, I don't really care to. He was
I
seeking
was
that.
trying to be a good person. It's like
Yeah.
like Superman. You're imprisoning Superman.
And he just breaks the
It's
handcuffs.
like
Yeah.
right. It's just like the only reason I'm staying here is because I'm willing, like, because I respect the laws, not because I can't escape.
Yeah. So he leaves, and he ends up on the way. He finds a farmhouse, and he enters the farmhouse, and like there's the cattle are dead, everyone's dead. And he finds out that there was like a knoll encampment by forgot what we called it, but I think we called him like Old Man Kravitz or some bullshit. Like, it was like a really like just generic name. And
Yep.
so it was him and his grandson. And in this knoll encampment, we find obviously Inogu related stuff.
I just want
And
to
they
be clear.
have,
This is all still your backstory, right?
yes, this is still backstory related.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's a lot. And he ends up forcing a troll under his service by beating the living fuck out of it. Like, he was just fire and brimstoning this motherfucker. And the troll, which I think we called him like Ripjaw or some shit, ends up becoming part of his service.
That's a good name.
Yeah. And so that ends up being like one of his little guys that he call up in the end. So it's just like, yeah, like he's just like forcefully
This is
creating.
essentially you're just it's Shadow of War. Let's not pretend that it's not Shadow of War. It's Shadow
That
of
was
War.
supposed to be my campaign I'm running now.
Whatever. It's Shadow of
But
War.
Kylen, his entire purpose was just to kill Orcus. And the goal, there could have been two different ways. If I continued steeping into evil, he would end up taking the mantle of Orcus by accident. But if he like maintained his neutrality, he would
Whoopsie
become like,
daisy.
yeah, pretty much. But if he did what he was supposed to, which was what I was trying to really focus on, he would end up getting his son back as a promise by the Raven Queen, because the Raven Queen was like, hey, I really don't fucking like Orcus, so hey, this works out. And that was like kind of his shtick. Because his wife was like, I don't want to come back, because in his prayers, he would attempt to talk to his wife and kid, and that's where he determined the son would be better, because wife was like, I'm dead, but I want our son to try and have
Yeah,
a life.
I'm good being dead.
Oh, she was like having a blast where she was like supposed to be, but yeah.
Like, I worship the god of orgies. Like, I'm having a
It's
blast.
a freaking in the metaphor.
I'm having a blast.
But yeah, that's all backstory. And my buddy Roland, his character was like intertwined in that. So it's like, it was really interesting seeing how it kind of meshed, because his character was like, I don't want to stay, but I feel obligated by a life debt type of thing, because he was sentenced to be executed like that following morning. So it was really cool seeing how his communication and I just an instantaneous like throwaway comment was, I mean, I could save you from death. And my DM was like, I got you, and then ran that. And we're like, holy shit, this works.
Yeah, like it is one of those things that, like, a lot of people bitch. They're like, oh, your character's level 1. Like, they haven't done a whole lot, so there's no point in having a backstory. But, like, bullshit.
My
Like,
character started at 10 for that one, so
no, I know, but like, it's even better if you're higher level. But like, at level, but like, people are like, oh, you're 17, 18, you haven't done anything. I was like, yeah, just because you as a human haven't done anything in 18 years. Like, there are like there are teenagers that have won the fucking Olympics. Like, don't tell me that, like, oh, your character going out and, like, maybe like wiping out a whole city of orcs or something, or elves, or whatever. Like, yeah, okay, that's a little unrealistic for level 1, but like,
there are like 8-year-olds that speak multiple languages
right,
fluent.
like, yeah, like surviving, and this is a world with magic, motherfucker. Like, it's not supposed to be realistic, yeah, it's having a
Yeah, like,
backstory. Like, just don't make it ridiculous. And then you also have to take into account how old your character is. Like, I was talking about my Eladrin. Like, he was out like if you're an elf, like that's the thing about elves. It's like you're 100 years old. Why haven't you done anything in your 100 years? Like,
Yeah, in
my,
the Eladrin, technically, like they're like to what fifth edition states. Because I watched AJ Pickett's video, and I
well, this
believe
this was
Misdirect's
this was
video.
fourth edition anyway. They
Oh,
they ch-
that's
they
fair.
cha- they changed stuff in fifth, but like in fourth edition, like I mean they still are technically elves, but like yeah, they still follow the same guidelines, of Age of Elves. But like I was like, I'm 100 years old. Like I've done stuff in the 100 years to justify.
Yeah,
Like I trained as a guard, a soldier for the city, and then was able to kill because I got lucky. I killed the like one of the lieutenants that was attacking us, that was raiding us, and the city disappeared. Like I was outside the city when midnight hit, so it disappeared, and I was stuck in this realm with these dark elves. So they captured me, and then because I was such a good fighter, they put me in the pit, and I
yeah. It was
survived in
either
the pit for
die.
20 years, and eventually was
Yeah,
able to escape and made my way through the Underdark and got out, and then I joined a traveling. And this was me building a backstory with one of the other characters. Is one of the other characters was playing a bard, and I was like, yeah, my character, because of how dexterous he was, because he he juggled like rings with his swords. Because I'm an elf, like I'm an elf and I have a 20
yeah,
dexterity,
well,
like
thank
it's
you.
it's you know. So and he did that for a while, and then eventually like he went on his way to do some other stuff. Like he just did stuff, like stuff happened. He got trained in ranger stuff, like he stuff. I was actually also the reason that the GM like because I had face step. So he was like, "Oh, you can't see anything." I was like, "I'm gonna look through the doorknob, or I'm gonna look through the keyhole." He's like, "Yeah, you look through the keyhole, you see stuff going on over there." I was like, "Cool." I face stepped to the other side of the door. So like after that point, keyholes were always blacked out. And at some point, I was like, "I'm looking under the door." He's like, "You see stuff in the other room." I was like, "I'm a face step." He's so going forward. He's like, "Oh yeah, like they're vacuum sealed now. All the doors are vacuum sealed. There's just this wall of blackness. You can't see anything on the other side of the door." Um, all right, so your fucking novel over there of your character. Mine is way simpler because I didn't actually come up with the majority of the actual backstory of the character because I just wanted to play Cobalt and Ravnica. Um, so from the story is literally like the character's backstory is like a month old in game because I didn't come up with anything prior to that. So there's like you've heard I've come up with these elaborate backstory, like generic kind of solid backstories where there's stuff you can pick out of it, and then that elf had a huge backstory. Perrin has a huge backstory. um Knife was part of he's from Ravnica. He went, and him and his four somebodies, once again, I didn't come up with who they are. They're just four other kobolds as a team. We joined. We took part in like the Tooth and Claw tournament that was happening in the Gruul clans lands. So we go to the tournament, we get into a fight. At some point, we fight a black dragon. My kobold is the one because Curtis mentioned that one of the kobolds got eaten by this black dragon during the tournament. And so I decided that that was my kobold. So my kobold got eaten by a black dragon in the fight, and then I think the other four like just got knocked out. I don't remember if they got killed or not, but so he got eaten. He's super dead. He got shit out. And because of how much he hates dragons, he became a hollow one and came back to life. And he's a monk, so he has the um, order of the dragon or whatever it is. Except how he gets his draconic abilities, like the elemental. I made a TikTok about this. This is the character that he has to eat dragons to gain their elemental damage for his monk abilities. So while he was inside of the black dragon, he ate part of it, and that's why he can now punch and do acid damage and have
I
like
think
an
you've
acid
mentioned this
breath.
before.
Yes, I did a TikTok about the exact because that was a whole lead up to who the character was, so I could be like, "You got any dragon meat?" What? No. Ah, it's a shame because I'm here to kick ass and eat dragons, and you're all out of dragons. And then I punched the hobgoblin in the face twice. Um, but like that's the whole thing. It's like the character essentially like um, he hates dragons and he wants to kill them and eat them to gain their strength. I mean, there's a little bit more because, like I said, I talked about from the Forgotten Realms. There's the leader of the pirates and some of his crew members, like his lieutenants, came to Ravnica, um, and he died at the same like around the same time that my character was coming back. So a piece of Dane the Boulder Johnson's soul got put into my tiny body. So there's like a soul egg of Dane inside of me. So I talked with a deeper voice, but still, hey, you got any dragon meat? And then eventually, like the character died again, like a couple of sessions into me playing him, I just died because I failed 3 death saving throws, and then the GM was just like, "Well, Dane's soul like leaves out, like his shadow soul like departs your body, but you come back to life." And I was like, "Cool." And like it took Salem like 5 minutes to realize that I wasn't using like he's like, "Wait, that's not the voice you used for that character. This is a different voice." Like like nobody knows that that's what happened. Dane might show back up and try to repossess my body, so. But it's me being a kobold, which like I've established, the only proper way for me to play kobold is a barbarian. But I
It's
established,
funny that I can see Salem doing that after knowing him a little bit.
yeah,
Is that he's usually very observant, but when he
yeah,
doesn't see something, it takes a while.
yeah. Um, I actually commented on Ginny D's page because like somebody was going after her or people bitching about her or whatever. I was like, people who complain about your style deserve to have me play a kobold barbarian in their game because it is pure chaos with the hit points to back it up. So that's like that's the whole character back. And originally he was Knife because it's Dane and Knife, so he's Knife. But now because Dane's no longer in the body, it's just Knife. But like that's the whole backstory. Essentially, I got into a fight with my friends. I got eaten by a dragon. I fucking hate dragons, so I came back to life and I met the party because they were the champions, and so I followed them back to their guild. And that's how like I showed up in the middle of the night and they're like, "Who the fuck are you?" I was like, I'm here because you guys are strong and you're the champion, so you're like one of the strongest people, so I want to join your group and be part of your guild.
You
And
fed me now. I'm your problem now.
that's right. Like that's literally why my character and then I just get to be pure chaos and eventually I'll get to eat more dragons. Niv Mizzet, if you know anything about magic, Niv Mizzet's on my fucking list. He's on the menu at some point.
I do not know magic whatsoever.
Niv Mizzet is not only is he like a dragon god, effectively, he is also the living guild pact. So he's super powerful. So him being on my list is ridiculous because there's no way I'm gonna be able to fight him and win, and then be able to eat him. But that would be funny. Like that's the ultimate culmination of Knife. Is Knife becomes the living guild pact because he beat Niv Mizzet and ate him. And it's like I'm the guild pact now, bitches. That would be terrifying. I'm gonna tell Curtis about that. Anyway, so that's you had 3 technically.
Technically.
Also, this was supposed to be a quick video.
Yeah, I kind of took up like half of that with just Kylan.
No, I took up more than half. But so yeah, the idea was just like that's 5 backstories with a couple blurbs of other character backstories mixed in. So I mean, it's good. Like I have to mention Chip just because I was talking about him earlier. That because it's the thing that happened. And we have decided. So he's now a path of the zealot barbarian. We've discussed that I think in our last video. And essentially, it's the romantic thing of it may be magic that brings him back, but it's his love for his husband that makes him want to keep coming back. And oh, that's sweet. That's romantic as fuck. Like, how can you? Like, oh God, your heart just exploded. It's the cutest. Fuck. But we established last game when I played him that the reason that his god is okay with him coming back is because she's Kiltzi, the Maztecan goddess of love, both romantic and sexual. She is so annoyed at this man because he will not shut the fuck up about his husband.
She
It's
just
like
wants to get rid of him.
she wants him to go, so that's why she allows him to leave. That's why he's a Pact of the Zealot Barbarian, or Path of the Zealot
He's not only
Barbarian.
a zealot in barbarian standards, he's like a zealot
Zealot in
like
love, yeah, and so
yeah.
that's why she's like, fuck, he won't shut up about his husband. God damn it.
He's the most
Me,
devout fire
me,
saint.
damn it. This is so, like, so she is just so annoyed because he won't shut up that she actively, like, no, yeah, go. Like, she kicks him out. Like,
She's annoyed.
go back to being alive, which is why he's come back, why he's been resurrected 17 times. But, like, she's like, no, yeah, you can go. Like, it's a revolving door because she doesn't want to put up with it because she understands at some point it's going to be forever, and she's just putting that off as long as possible. And I want to state this is not because I'm play I you know the this is a woman who's just being irrational or whatever because she's a goddess. This would probably be the exact same thing if it was a male god of love. Like people are like, no, Jesus Christ, go.
It's
Bro,
funny because I'm just
you make
imagining like
I'm the god of love and you make me look bad at how much I feel guilty about how much I don't love somebody.
I
Like
just imagine like narcissist who's like obsessed with himself is like second just right under Chips, and it's like I'd
like
rather
there's
listen to him talk about wanting to fuck
fuck
himself
himself, right?
all day.
There is literally nobody in existence that has more love than him, and that's for himself. And somehow, here you
He's just
are. Like it's
it's like
well,
so bad that
it's
he's a
so
permanent
right.
outcast.
I didn't right exactly. He just doesn't let him stay. But I was discussing Chips earlier, so I had to. Like, that's what gave me the idea to do the backstories. But I was like, I have to talk about Chips because his
That
love.
god is like, if I ever decide to demote myself, he's the next one.
Right.
That is the next.
That I'm gonna tell Curtis about that. Like that's all my characters are just gonna become gods. Like I actually want Thazar to become a god.
This is actually so my first two characters that I brought up, Sneer and Smear, are the only ones that I wanted to become gods out of the probably 30, 40 characters I've probably made.
Perrin doesn't want to become a god because he worships Mask too much. And now legally everybody in Ravnica knows about Mask. If we get 1,000 comments, I will explain how that happened. Or 1,000 likes, I'll explain how that happened. If I haven't already. I hope I haven't already. But Thazar, essentially, it's because my brother he explained that souls, it's not just souls that give you power, it's also knowledge that gives you power. So the more knowledgeable you are, the more divine you become. And essentially, it's souls are knowledge because souls are the story of your life. So if you have the knowledge of people's lives, you are still just almost as knowledgeable. So Thazar will gain so much knowledge without having to become a lich that he will become essentially even a demigod means that he stops aging and then he has time to do all of those things that he wants to do, like read a million trillion books and write a million trillion books and do research on a million trillion things and go on a date with somebody. He's very lonely.
He goes on a date with his favorite book at that time.
He does. Anyway, so that's kind of the ideas. It was supposed to be short, but none of our videos are. I don't know why I pretend like it's going to be short. We aren't Dungeon Dudes. We aren't DM Layer. We aren't Mr. Rex. Well, Rex has like a million. His are long, but it makes sense because he has a bunch of lore to put in his. But somehow we're making longer videos than Mr. Rex, and he has like worlds of lore in his videos.
We just talk.
We do. So I hope that these are some good ideas. Like you like these backstories and they give you some ideas, or if because these are ones like unlike our last video, our character concepts video, those were on the fly. So this is now you kind of understand the caliber of the characters when we have time to put thought into a character versus on the fly. And the hope is that we kind of get more towards practicing with those videos. We get to the point where we can do it something like this. But it's usually the funny stuff that comes up when I'm like, oh, this, and then it's just ridiculous. I have so many ridiculous character ideas that's what like my blood hunter, that the reason that I made him what he is, not the one in your game, the other one, for my friend for Falcon's game, the reason that I just wanted to have a character that has a ridiculous passive perception. So that's why he's a human with the observant feat, with the uh, prodigy feat, with a blood hunter, order of the Lycan blood hunter, so that I can have a 29 passive perception at level 5. Like, just for that literally, that whole reason. Like, or, there's, building a character, a 20th level character that's 11 levels of rogue, 3 levels of bard, and 6 levels of artificer, so that I'm proficient in all skills technically. As a bard, I'm proficient in all skills partially with a jack of all trades, and anything that I'm proficient in, as far as I cannot roll under a 10 because of level 11 rogue, reliable talent, and then just artificer because I love artificer. But at level 6, they get anything that they are proficient, any tool they are proficient in, they are considered to have expertise. So if it's something that they're actually trained in, they're doubly as good that normal person than they normally would. But if it's something that they're only kind of proficient in because they're a bard, then they're normal level, because technically it's half times 2, it's 1. So I have plenty of ridiculous ideas, and I try not to make broken characters. I have a couple ideas for if you need another player for your current game, though. Which I thought of on the draft. When I thought of on the draft. No, that's only if people don't show up. I don't want to deal with your party if I don't have to.
Well, I don't blame you.
Anyway, so that's the idea, is that, interesting character ideas, backstories that we've come up with for different characters. I mean, we've covered rogue, bard, monk, wizard, artificer, sort of. Like, it's, like ranger, but in 4th edition. I love 4th edition. So it's, where we can come up with cool, like, character ideas, and given the time, it's great. But they don't have to be fucking epics like yours. But you're also level 10. You're also level 10, so there's, that's more valid. That it would be a lot longer. Your level 1 characters, they could be, you did some stuff. Like, it could be generic, like Knife. His was just like, I got eaten by a dragon. I have no idea what happened before that, but like, it could have just been like, I lived my life, and then essentially we're like, hey, there's this tournament, you want to go do it? And we're like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And then we went and did it, and then I got eaten by a fucking dragon. Like, or, my backstory is, I don't remember who I am. I woke up on a beach with a knife in my back and this flag in my hand, and somebody brought me back, and I have no idea what my backstory is. And then that gives the GM a whole lot of, and then we run into a Baylor named Labor, because my brother's an idiot. He named it Labor and then accidentally called it Baylor. And we're like, oh, that's funny, it's a Baylor. And he's like, shit, you weren't supposed to know that. We're like, we didn't actually figure that out. Like, we were just laughing, because it's funny. We thought it was a Freudian slip instead of just a generic slip. But and then you give the GM a whole lot of leeway of, oh, your character is actually, a twin from an alternate reality, and in this reality you died, in the other reality your twin died. And I'm like, what? Okay, cool, shit, this is great. Like, I have so many more things now. So I was like, it's not because I was being lazy. It was. It's because I wanted to give my brother as a GM a lot more leeway about, how to bring me into the game. So you can have generic, like, I'm just a barbarian, I just want to kill things. I got imprisoned because I got into a fight with a guard, and that's why I'm in this prison. And then that's if the game is a jailbreak, or I joined this guild for whatever reason, or like there's basic reasons, and then there's long drawn out reasons. So it's there's no wrong backstory, essentially, is the long. If you got to this point, there's really no wrong way to do a backstory. Because some of them are, you just got eaten by a dragon and now you hate dragons. I look forward to killing that dragon at some point, by the way. So anyway, that's it.
Yeah.
Hour and 4 minutes later. Could have just done the Bard video today.
Yeah, honestly, I would probably
if
do the same
if
one.
I whatever. All right, I'm Kalvin.
Right.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And now you get to listen to the outro song. And that's the outro song. Yeah.